You cannot market yourself into a business. You must sell yourself into a business. And people don't like sales, but sales is just helping people make the best decision for their life with their money. That's all it is. It's helping them make a great decision that's going to increase their money, not reduce it. So sales is a very wholesome thing when done well and ethically.
Hey, it's Nick, and welcome to 1000 Rounds, the podcast where I explore the stories of solopreneurs who have made the bet on themselves to build a business that serves their life. Every episode, you'll hear all about the lessons they've learned and the uncommon routes they've taken to stand out in a world that is purposefully trying to commoditize them.
I'm Thom Van Dycke. I'm a business consultant for solopreneurs, helping them set up strategic offers.
I like to start these conversations off with the first time we crossed paths and how I became familiar with you and your work. And I was thinking back to it, and it was through, you had asked a question. We're in a Category Thinkers Slack group, and you had asked some question there. I responded. We ended up just DMing each other. Somehow we ended up on a call, and we've been like friends ever since. We've caught up on Zoom like a dozen times since then, informally. And so we've just been friends, and now we just chat ongoing, and we're in a similar line of work. We both work with solopreneurs. So it's been good to have somebody just that kind of gets it on like that next level order of work, of like who we're working with and all that type of stuff. So I think, but I don't know, that had to be close to a year ago now.
Yeah, it would be, because I made the transition to consulting through August and September.
So let's talk about that transition. I know you used to be a pastor in a past life, which is probably the most unconventional path to solopreneurship and like marketing consulting that I know of, because most people I work with or I speak with on this show are like, yeah, I was the director of marketing for many years, and then I got a couple of clients, and now I'm a solopreneur who does marketing for other people. But you took the pastor route, which is probably the most fascinating one. So like, tell me about this turning point for you. Walk me through the moment you decided like, I'm going to not do this thing anymore, and I'm going to go become a marketing and like consultant, work with solos. Like, how did that happen?
Well, Nick, that's a good question. And it's a bit of a complicated one. I was a pastor for 19 years, and it was actually October 1st, 2020 that I launched my marketing business, which was 19 years to the day that I had started my first job as pastor. So it felt very significant. And I loved being a pastor, but 2020, I had turned 40, and I had always felt like 40 was going to be an important year for me. I didn't have any sort of visions or dreams. I just felt that way because my dad went farming at around 40 and built a massive, very, very valuable farm after that year. And I have a lot of other mentors who really, something happened at the age of 40. And so I've always felt like there's a lot of life to live after that. Maybe I was kind of aware and looking for it. And then the pandemic happened. And I was part of a very large church in Canada in a rural setting. But we had 4,500 people, 80 staff. It was large. I was in senior leadership, but I wasn't the senior leader. And COVID put a magnifying glass on everything. So whether it was an individual, a business, politicians, government, it doesn't matter. It put a magnifying glass on it. And I believe that where there was healthy people, resilience, that was magnified. And where there was stuff that was under the surface and unhealthy, that was magnified. And that's kind of what happened to our church. And a lot of stuff came to the surface. It wasn't directly related to COVID. It just was the timing. And so my world was kind of falling apart around me. The church was going through a split, or what would eventually lead to a split. My very good friends and I on staff were all very confused. And it was tough because when you're a pastor seems to sit closer to your identity than, say, marketer or sales director. That doesn't feel like an identity thing, right? Pastor is part of your identity. So it was really tough. And I had bought this book called Building a StoryBrand by Donald Miller. And it had sat on my desk for a year, and I hadn't read it. And I was like, well, got nothing better to do. So I decided to read this book. And at the back of the book, it said you can certify as what they call StoryBrand guide to help as a business, to help businesses to bring storytelling into their marketing. And I thought, I wonder if I could do that. Now, side story, I had been hired by an NHL agent to, not a word of a lie, NHL agent to write a children's book. And I ended up writing 2 children's books. And his name is Ray Petkow, and he's the agent for, I don't know, 9 or 10, I think, NHL players and a bunch of junior players as well. And he had been bugging me since March to like get this thing done. And we had become good friends. So I was talking with him one day in this transition because there was no way I was going to even float this idea of starting my business with my wife until I knew that I had some contracts lined up. And so I went to Ray and I started talking to him about it. And he was like, when are you going to get this book done? I said, well, Ray, I'm doing it weekends and evenings. Like it's a big project, right? And at the end of the meeting, he said, well, this is what I want you to know, Thom. I want to pay your salary so that you can transition out of your job. So it ended up being about half-time salary for 6 months. I ended up writing 2 books for him during that time. And the other half of the time, I launched my small business. And he gifted me an amount of money so that I was able to do that. So that's how I got started. It was very much this incredible gift. And I have a lot of gratitude for him. He invested in a new course in my life that just, it was like, I can't believe the path that I went on. It was so fun. Lots of imposter syndrome at first, feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. And then I had this very pivotal moment in about month 3, so around December, where I went, okay, Thom, you've been a pastor for 19 years. You were a teaching pastor. You were in charge of communication. You're a good communicator. Marketing is just communicating in a new genre. And as soon as I made that shift in my mind, things took off. So that's the transition story, but that's how I went from being a pastor to owning my own business. It was a very good time during the pandemic because everything was going online. And so people had to figure out how to readjust their own marketing and how they do meetings and lots of stuff. It felt providential in some ways, and it felt natural to me in a lot of ways.
This is crazy. So what are the books called, first of all?
So there's 2 books. The first book is called Ari's Awful Day. Ari is the mascot for Alpha Hockey Incorporated. So it's this little lion. I co-wrote that one with a hockey player named Jermaine Lowen. So he's only the second Jamaican player to be drafted into the NHL. He's playing out of Abbotsford right now. He's been drafted by Vancouver, but he's not, you know how that goes when you're not always getting to play. So he's not as well known, but really interesting story. He was adopted out of Jamaica by a white evangelical family here in Manitoba. So we kind of told his story a little bit. Then the second book I wrote with Connor Hellebuck, who is the goalie for the Winnipeg Jets. And that one took off in a kind of a different way because, you know, he's a 2-time Vezina Trophy winner. And so the Winnipeg Jets actually picked that one up. It's called Is Something Wrong with Weasel? Or There's Something Wrong with Weasel? And it's about mental health for kids. So the Winnipeg Jets have a mental health foundation called Project 11, and they work in schools. And they didn't really have any books for kids in kindergarten to grade 2. So I wrote it at a grade 3-4 level, but it's really meant for younger kids. And it's great. Like, it's been very surreal. Like, we've been featured on NHL.com. We're on regularly Hockey Night in Canada. They're holding up my book. It's sold in the Winnipeg Arena. It's very crazy.
That is cool. That is cool. So how did you meet Ray?
Well, Ray went to my church, but it was a big church. So when I was a youth pastor, I knew who his kids were, but I had no idea who this guy was. And so he called me literally out of the blue. And he said, Thom, I want to run a project by you. That was like late February, early March 2020. And so we just went for coffee. He brought his like executive assistant going, what's going on here? He's like, I want you to write me a story. I'm like, well, I love stories. And he flattered me. He said, you're the best storyteller I know. And so then I ended up doing that, but I also illustrated as well. And at first it wasn't going to be collaborative, but Within a few months, there was all the Black Lives Matter stuff going on in the States. There was a lot of turmoil. And Ray and I had a brainstorming meeting one day, and he goes, I wonder if we should pull Jermaine in on this. He cares very much about the issues that are happening right now around race. That's why we did that.
Wow. Then what happens? So you meet Ray, you write these books. You said he made a donation to help you start your business. It sounds like he just paid you for your work, and he was generous in what you were compensated with. But tomato.
Yeah. What he did was he did end up paying me 6 months of halftime salary to write those books, because he really wanted to get them finished faster than, like a side gig. The other thing that he did for me, the gift part, was he covered my certification for StoryBrand in the first year, which was pretty incredible for a bunch of reasons. And he would probably blush if he knew that I was saying this, and I don't really care that much, because a guy like him should be celebrated. First of all, it was a significant amount of money, thousands of dollars, and it was US. So when you convert that to Canadian, it was 30% more. So it was a lot of money. I was a passer, so I didn't have a lot of savings to just move into that. He saw something in me that I didn't even recognize in myself yet, so he felt good about it. I remember sitting in the meeting going, Ray, I don't think I'll ever be able to pay you back. And he goes, oh, well, it's not a loan, it's a gift. And he wrote on the check, an investment in your dream. Guys like him are very rare. The other thing that was crazy is that it was during COVID, so there weren't even NHL games going on. And I didn't really know anything about the industry of hockey, but agents don't get paid. Well, players don't get paid if they don't play. Agents don't get paid if their players don't play. So he was in this long drought where he wasn't making a ton of money. Well, he wasn't making any money. I mean, he knew we were going to get back to the game eventually. But there was just so many things that make it an unusual relationship and investment. So I'm very grateful. I'm very, very grateful.
Ray sounds like a great guy. Do you still keep in touch with him?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We don't hang out quite as much because I'm not writing books for him anymore. There might be a third book eventually, but it's a ton of work. Writing and illustrating, so much more work than you would typically think. Even though it's 800 words at the end of a children's book, it's only 800 words. And when you listen to interviews with really good children's authors, they're like, oh yeah, it takes 12 months at least just to get the text down.
Well, I think because it's only 800 words, you can't just fill it with 200 pages of bullshit like people fill B2B marketing books, or just a B2B, any of these types of books, these nonfiction books, which could have been a blog, which were 300 pages. You can just fill it up with crap. This children's book can only be 800 words because this children doesn't have 80,000 words in them to sit through it. So you got to be more selective. And I think for that reason, it has to have a point. B2B books could go on forever with no point.
You're not wrong. It was an incredible experience. And we call it Connor's book. It is really Connor Hellebuck's book. He's the one who holds it up. But every time they're but Thom Van Dycke, tell me about him.
You're on the cover? You're credited on the cover?
My name is first. I wasn't ghostwriting.
No way. That's
Thom Van Dycke with Connor Hellebuck, with Jermaine Lawn.
Oh, that's so cool. I thought it was it was a acknowledgements section type of thing. We thank Thom for his contributions to the book. You're on the cover, my man. That's cool. So Ray blesses you with this gift. You become StoryBrand certified. You make the leap. You go out on your own, in a more official capacity. I'm sure when you did this, you were second guessing a whole bunch of things. Talk me through a little bit about what that was like for you. How'd you work through that stuff?
You second guess everything. Now, I'm a bit of a contrarian. I love the Contrarian's Guide to Leadership. If somebody tells me, how is this going to work? I go, I'm going to make it work. One of my buddies a year later said, Thom, you never actually even entertained failure, did you? I'm like, you don't manifest the world into success, right? I don't believe that. But there is something to be said about a mindset where, yeah, I actually did not allow myself the option to fail. And it was interesting. I mean, I will be transparent. My first marketing contracts were all sympathy gigs. They were all people who were like, we don't like the way you were treated, Thom. We're going to take a risk on you. Which a year later, if you had asked me, you can't articulate these things until you reflect on them. But, everybody talks about know, like, and trust. And what I tell new entrepreneurs is that's great for a year, 2, 3 years. But when you start out, you don't start on the sort of the peripheral. You actually start in the center and work your way out. So you go to the network you have. It's scary, right? Like you got to ask friends and you got to ask people to take a risk on you that already trust you. If you're in your 40s, got a bit of gray in your beard and that kind of, it actually does help. Like I'm not a 20-year-old who's like, I'm going to be a digital marketer and you have no track record. People knew that I was a good leader. You know, at one point I was leading 17 staff. We had around 600 volunteers and 1,500 kids in our care. I'm not new to leadership, right? So it was a risk that they took. So the first about six contracts I took were definitely like, okay, we'll give you a try here, Thom. For about a year and a half, I didn't have a pipeline. That was always kind of scary. I didn't have a pipeline, but as one contract ended, the next one would start. So, you know, I never ran out of work, basically, until last August. Last August, I actually ran out of copywriting work. But until then, basically 3 years, no slow period. It was incredible.
So how did you fill your pipeline going through that?
I was part of this great community of StoryBrand. Now, StoryBrand they have a directory like a lot of these certifications do, and they try to feed you leads. I've gotten very few leads through the StoryBrand directory, which is normal. But I got a few, and then I started networking with other StoryBrand guides. And so quite a few of my contracts became white label contracts where I was working for other agencies, but I was very good at copywriting. And that began to be recognized, you know, fairly early. And so then, you know, I ended up working with maybe 4 or 5 agencies on the regular. Plus I had a smattering of my own clients. So it just kept me really busy.
Gotcha. And so you started with your network and you went out and just asked.
Yeah.
So I'm in business. This is what I could do for you.
Yeah. And the answer is always yes. So it was my neighbor who owns a Shell gas station who gave me my first contract. And the way it happened was I was telling them about StoryBrand and they were like, oh, it's interesting. Not very sure if it really helps us as a car wash and a gas station. But I said, well, you're still doing stupid stamps for loyalty points for your car wash. Have you ever thought of digitalizing that? And they're like, yes, we have. We have no idea who to ask or how to do that. They're like, do you know how to do that? Yes, I do.
Did
Which
you?
was nonsense. No. But you know what? I knew enough to know that there's plug and play stuff out there, right? Like I went to an app builder.
You knew enough to figure it out.
It wasn't that hard. And so I built them the app and then I put together the marketing campaign that advertised that they were transitioning to this digital app. But it's kind of fun. You know, they're still using my app and I did some graphic design work for them and stuff. But that was my first project. And I think that's important because there's this concept of getting to yes that is very hard for people. And there's different ways to get to yes. I think a lot of new solopreneurs, they have an idea of who their ideal client is, what they want to do, what their ideal price point is. And they don't move, like they don't allow themselves to kind of adapt. And one person I really respect told me that the number one skill of a coach or consultant is the able to improvise. So improvisation, literally, think on your feet, see things from a different angle. And I think that's actually also true for sales. So if you're in a sales call and you don't know how to change tactics and get somebody to a yes, you're not going to make the sale. So I'm not afraid to get creative on pricing. I don't believe in undervaluing myself, but I told somebody today, we were looking at a $3,000 project. I said, look, we can split this up over the 3 months. You can do it in one payment, or, you know, we can go as much as 6 months if that is easier for you. I really just don't care. I'll get my money in the end. You'll get tremendous value and I'll help you out in the meantime. But people are too rigid. They don't want to think outside the box there. And they also don't move on their deliverables. They're like, oh, I don't want to do deliverables. I just want to do strategy. Well, yeah, but sometimes to get the strategy job, you need to do some deliverables to get there. And you don't take, like, I'm not saying don't take people who are way outside your ideal profile, but like take people who are adjacent. They're like, it's not really my ideal fit, but it's money in the bank. So let's get things moving. We have to learn to get to yes. And I think I figured that out. I just said yes to everything because I needed to, quite frankly.
But you said yes to a lot of stuff in the early days that you probably didn't want to do, or you learned that you didn't like doing. How did you get to something that you felt like worked really well for your clients, worked really well for you, that you love doing? Like, how did you land there? And just one layer deeper, you've worked with agencies, you've worked with gas stations, you've worked with NHL agents. Like, how did you get to solopreneurs through all of that offering iteration?
That's a great question. I mean, the nice thing about white labeling, you make less money than it. Like, let's say I'm doing a wireframe, like the words of the website, right? For a white label, you make probably 55 or 60% what you would make if it was your own client. Okay, so it's less, but I don't have to go prospecting. So they come to me with projects. I have to manage 4 relationships. Those are the agency relationships. I don't have to manage 15 relationships with clients directly. So there was a very good trade-off there, and they brought business to me. When I step back and look at it, networking has played a very, very core sort of a thread that weaves its way through, whether it was my network from before I was a solopreneur, or just leaning into my network along the way, or building new networks. Like I joined some Facebook groups. I joined some Slack communities, huge communities where there are people who either fit my ideal profile so I can actually go out and help them, or they can connect me to my ideal client. Either way, I just believed in adding value in these communities. And I would just go to these communities, and when people were facing issues, I would answer their issue. I would help them, add value. And honestly, genuinely, with not expecting anything in return. I have always done that. So every call, whether it's a networking call, sales call, discovery call, I don't care. If you give, like, just give it away. It's just remarkable how people respond to that kind of generosity. And this is why I don't have like a low ticket offer, because I would rather just give it away till you can afford to hire me for my high ticket offer. It's actually less work to just give it away and not have to manage communities and, online courses. Just give it all away and then help people to create a successful business. And then they'll hire you to take you the rest of the way. And that actually, like, looking back, I can see that. And I've only been in business for 4 years. I'm coming up on 4 years, right? So it's not that long. And I already see the patterns and the traction. So just give it away.
I'm a big fan of the just give it away model. Like, I built like a mini course with, it's like, it has basically almost all of the frameworks and things that I use, or a vast majority of them. And people are like, why would you do that? It's like, because if you can act on it without me, do it. Like, people pay me to increase their probability of success. If your probability of success is that high, great. Me gatekeeping the information isn't what makes hiring me or someone like you that special. Like, it's the fact that you can hire us and we'll help you become successful with it.
This is a very good point, Nick. I've had a really good sobering realization that the majority of people, like even category thinkers, like, I appreciate what they do. That's how we got connected, thinking about becoming a category of one. And yeah, I get it. Okay. But let's just back up for a minute. When I'm in digital marketing, what on earth makes me unique? If you look at the services that I offer, absolutely nothing makes me unique. Like, nothing. You go, oh, but I'm niche down. Great. Within your niche, I promise you, I can find 500 other people who do exactly what you do. So as a business consultant, what makes me unique? Nothing. I might have some ideas that are interesting, but honestly, nothing. There is one differentiator, and that is me, and that is you. So you taking the same service that another person does makes it unique because you're great. You're fun. There's synergy. There's chemistry. The things that you do make sense to what I want to accomplish, right? We have to stop pretending that we're somehow, like, the inventive people out there are very rare. But I promise you, if you hire me, we're going to have a good time. I told someone the other day, I was like, man, if there was any industry I never want to get into, it's real estate. God bless all the realtors out there. It is just super saturated. And everybody knows that. And everybody says the same thing in their marketing. Oh, we return our calls within 30 minutes. Well, that's just actually good business. That doesn't make you unique, right? Or I saw a billboard yesterday, thinking of selling. Well, it's not a unique selling proposition. If I was a real estate agent, all of my billboards would say this: hire anybody you want, but if you want to have a good time selling or buying a house, hire me. Because I promise we are going to have a lot of fun doing this. That would be my unique selling proposition.
You will like working with me. I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, people most certainly, it's hard to be successful when you're working with somebody you don't like. But on the other end, it's like it's hard to want to show up to those calls and take them seriously or do what they ask you to do and all those things. So there's definitely something to that. But you talked about, it's like, well, you niche down, I can find 500 other people. I think the deeper you niche down, like I would say you're not niche down enough. Because if you niche down the way that I believe it should be done and the way that I like to teach it, it's like you can get to a place where maybe there's other people that get that the problem that you're trying to solve exists, but nobody gets it and articulates it in quite as quickly and compelling as you do. And this road is, as I say it out loud, is slowly leading to the whole you are what make you different. But I just see it from a slightly different angle, which is if I can describe the problem that you have clearly and quickly in a way that you're like, no one else has been able to explain it to me that way. Like, this is exactly how I see it. This is exactly what's going on in my life. You can dominate that niche, right? Like you can own that over anybody else. And so there is a lot of value in being able to do that. And also it checks off your box of being like, you're going to like working with me because you know that I get it.
Right. I would not disagree with that. And I think there's value in niching down. You can niche down in two different ways. You can niche down with a set of skills or within a particular industry. Like, I get that. But on the surface, if you give me a one-pager of your services, I can find so many other people.
Totally. And I think that's why, that's one of the things I love about the idea of the Category Thinkers Slack space, which was you have to help people perceive the thing that they're looking at. It's like your whole billboard that you just described. It's like there's a lot of real estate agents in this out there. If you work with them, they'll sell your house. If you were with me, we're going to sell your house and you're going to like working with me. Like, and you're going to enjoy the process. So I think it's like helping people perceive the thing that they're looking at is the skill set that I think a lot of solopreneurs struggle with, which is a big part of the job of selling yourself, because most of them that I work with and speak with, they come from a more like a professional background in like selling technology or something along those lines. And the struggle is always helping other people, like you're selling yourself, you're selling your ability, not what some web app can do. And that is a tough, it's tough for people to close that gap in their mind and show them how am I supposed to get people to perceive working with me in a really specific way so that they want to work with me. Not that I'm some unicorn.
Right. So if you get on a call with somebody, there are only two reasons why they don't hire you at the end of that call or at the end of the sales process, whatever, a series of calls. Number one, they're not the right person. And that can branch in 1,000 different ways. They might not be the right person because of personality, because of finances, because of the industry they're in, but they're not the right person. Or you don't have a compelling enough message. And I think that a lot of people are falling short on the compelling message part, which is why I lean more and more towards sales coaching and consulting than marketing consulting. My background of 4 years is marketing, but honestly, being a pastor is all about marketing. It's not about sales. It's about marketing. You're constantly, it's called legislative leadership. It's political leadership. You've got to inspire people to come and buy the message that you're giving. You can't sell the message. That gets you in a lot of trouble. Those are the pastors and churches we are very suspect of, and rightly so. So it is marketing. So I understand the marketing messaging to draw people in, to inspire them to buy and that kind of thing. But sales is a little bit different. And when you run a business, you cannot market your way into a business. It is virtually impossible. And this is what a lot of marketers don't get. So if you have marketers listening right now, this is a really important point. You cannot market yourself into a business. You must sell yourself into a business. And people don't like sales, but sales is just helping people make the best decision for their life with their money. That's all it is. It's helping them make a great decision that's going to increase their money, not reduce it. So sales is a very wholesome thing when done well and ethically. And what I tell marketers is you might be very good at marketing and you might be able to bring a ton of leads to your clients. But if you don't sell your own marketing and your skills, you're not going to get a business. And so we have to get good at sales. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. I don't even think it matters the size of your business. There are certain foundational things that you must have in place. And while the strategy is different for different niches and different audiences and different levels of industry, you still need those certain things in place. You can't get away from it.
So you're just talking about the difference between like marketing your way into a company, selling your way into a company, and you can't sell the message type of thing. Like, do you have a more tangible example of how this shows up or how you've applied this in your own work to just make it a little bit more, add more shape to it?
Yeah. So in marketing, we talk about the funnel. The funnel is an old concept. Some people think it's antiquated, but it doesn't matter. It is still a funnel. You're trying to capture the attention of people. You're trying to nurture that relationship. And then you're supposed to close the deal. It's the bottom of the funnel, right? You have a lot of people at the top and then you bring them down to the sale. But how do you get them into the funnel? You need to have some sort of a lead capture tool that grabs their attention, right? And this takes a very long time and you need to have a very good lead generator. Problem is, there are far and few between good lead generators. If I put together a checklist on what your website needs to be, use story-based marketing there. Well, I promised you, Google it. Mine isn't going to come to the top of the list. Like, it's not how it works. So what I learned is this. I used to say webinars are really good. Webinars are much better as a lead generator. But when I look at how I structured my webinars, actually, my webinars were not the top of funnel. They were just below the top of funnel. And the top of funnel for me was reaching out to people in the groups that I was a part of, inviting them personally to my webinar. That's sales. It's different. And the reason a webinar is so effective is because they're not just reading something, they're actually hearing you. So if I want to be a consultant, it's brilliant to get people in front of you and consult with them. In fact, I still do workshops twice a month. In 2023, I had over 300 people go through my workshops. Fantastic. And I loved it. It feels so good when you get 25 people there and you know they're engaged and stuff like that. But I actually don't care how many people come to my webinars. In June, I had one webinar where there were 17 people signed up and I was feeling energized and only 3 showed up. One was a person I've never met before. Another person was somebody who had been to many, many of my workshops and I knew very well. And then I can't remember who the third person was. I think they might have been a client, in fact. And the guy I've never met before booked a discovery call. And the person who had been coming for like a year and a half to my workshops also booked a discovery call after a year and a half of getting to know me. So I don't care if there's only 3 people, because what it means is I get to actually coach them live. I go through my topic and then I'm like, let's open it up for discussion. Let's actually solve some problems here. Let's mastermind this together. And you're demonstrating your approach, your ability, all of these things. And now they know what they're getting into if they say, I think we should probably meet. So anyways, but it's not the top of funnel. And so this whole idea that it's just this passive marketing funnel that eventually ends in a client, it just doesn't work that way. Even if that were true, the bottom of the funnel would not be a sale, not for consultants, not for anybody who has to meet the lead before they become a client. Because at the bottom, we're not selling a $30 widget. We're now, the call to action is, let's jump on a call together. I go, for goodness sakes, why bother with the months of funneling and energy of funneling people to get a meeting? Just get the meeting. Skip all that stuff.
Well, you're looking at webinars from a different perspective, and you do them in a consistent way, which I like. I'm a big fan of this approach, right? Because you don't need 300 clients. You need like 10 to 20 clients. So it's super easy to have those people there and help them see you in action. This is something that people tend to forget when your job is to coach and consult, which is they're buying you in action. And how are they going to know if you are competent? Well, they have to see you in action. That's like kind of the point of the discovery call. Do we get along? Do they truly have what it takes to help me get there? And so you bake that into your marketing program, into just the mechanics of what it is that you're doing. Most people would tell me, you got to pay for my time. You are like, I'll just do this for free and it will build my business. Talk me through your thought process there. Like, how did you decide, hey, I'm going to give my time away for free, call it marketing or whatever, do these webinars? Because consultants are like, my time is valuable. I'm not going to give it away for free. Like, if people want this level of engagement with me, they have to pay for it. And a lot of people will plant their flag and they'll die on that hill. But you were willing to give it away to build your business. And I think that's an approach that not enough, in my opinion, not a lot of people and not enough people are doing, because it's a fast way to build your business and a really, I think, a simple way to build your own skills and capabilities as a coach and consultant.
Oh, yeah. And I'll get back to your, like, how did I get there question. But every topic that I teach on is straight out of my curriculum that I teach with clients. So I even tell people, look, if you come for 2 years to every single workshop, you'll get
the program for free.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I just don't care. I live with an abundance mindset. Now, that's not to say that I don't worry about money, that I don't want to, build my business, that I don't have goals and kind of stress and, about meeting those revenue. Of course I do all of those things. But there are 8 billion people on this planet. I need to find 10 to 20 to hire me. I don't mind sharing the platform with you, Nick. If you did exactly the same thing as me, I don't care. I'll send people to you because there are enough people in the world that need our help. And I don't believe in running a mission. Like, I'm not running a nonprofit. I can't just help everybody who needs coaching but can't afford it. But there is a little bit of that in offering free webinars. Come to the webinar. I don't care. Maybe you'll pick up some things that will just get you farther along the road. I can't stand it. Like, people hold on to their money so tightly. If Ray Petcow had done that at the start of the career transition, it would never have happened. So I think there's a part of me that is maybe paying it forward a little bit, but it's also just really good business sense. Like, it just is. I would rather be known for this than having scarcity and saying, oh, I can't share my thoughts, or I need to charge you what they're worth. Come on. I've already said there's nothing that unique about my thoughts. There just isn't. You can find it in other places if you really look. So I just believe in abundance and generosity. Those are two of my core values. And I also believe in getting paid what I'm worth. But even with the way I structure my retainers, everything, I try to have a base retainer that's very reasonable, and then performance or variable that my retainer goes up over time. So that as I actually help you build your business, my retainer reflects the value that I'm bringing to your business. And that's why sometimes I look at these high ticket coaches. Oh, it's $15,000 to work with me. And if you can't afford that, we can't work together. And I will never lower my price because that means I'm not going to get, my ideal client. I go, come on. I look at it this way. If I believe in you, I'll charge you way less. And guess what's going to happen? If I can actually do what I say I'm going to do, I should be paid for that. But you don't know that. Value is derived from two things. One is a promise, another is a process in sales, okay? A lot of people have a promise, but they don't have a process. A lot of people have a process, but they don't actually attach it to a promise. That's where marketers fall. I'll get you 1,000 leads, but there's no guarantee that there'll be any ROI. Well, that's crap. You should believe in what you're doing and your skills enough as a coach or consulting or a marketer or anything, a salesperson, that you can say, look, I'm happy to work for less because I know that I'm going to help you succeed in so much that you'll want to pay me more. Okay, so I don't know if that quite answered your question about the workshops.
It definitely did, because this is abundance mindset at its on display in perfect focus, because you're not out here to help only the people who can afford it. You're like, how can I have the greatest impact? How can I help as many people as possible? I appreciate and respect it. This is a noble mission. Also, it's probably just better for business in the long run, because if people come to your workshops for 3, 4, 5 months, they're going to be further along. They're going to be more motivated. They're going to get it in a way that someone who's totally cold will or won't. And it just makes your life easier, makes their life easier. Like the whole sales process has become smoother. Like the formal sales process, the whole thing is selling the entire time, basically. So I think it's a better experience for everyone across the board, given your specific line of work. The other thing you said, which I wholeheartedly agree with, because we have a similar pricing philosophy, which is you should be able to capture the value that you create. And the most simple way to do that is to have aligned incentives with your clients.
Correct.
Like you just said, there's a lot of people that will charge you a lot of money to do a whole bunch, to do a lot of things. But at the end of the day, it's do you achieve, does the work amount to the thing that we need it to? And I am a firm believer in that aligning incentives with your clients is the easiest way for everybody to know that we're going to work really, really hard to get to where we're trying to go here. So I agree with it. It's something that I utilize for my own business. It's something I encourage all of my clients to find a way. I teach them and I try to help them find a way, because it's not so black and white when you're working upstream in mid-market and enterprise companies that to charge for outcomes in that way. But it is certainly possible to find ways to continue to align incentives in some way, shape, or form as you grow this thing. So yeah, I'm 100% with you, man. 100% with you.
Yeah. I've been on calls where you can see the light bulb go on when you explain this. And I've had a number of people go, so what you're saying is you're going to be part of my business.
I call it the co-pilot.
Yeah, I'm going to be in your business. And one guy said, I'll pay you this amount, no problem. And he says, I can't wait to pay you more. Because
Right?
he says, if I'm paying you more, it means I'm making more. So I got no problem with this. He was like so on board. That's not always the case.
This is true. This is very true. I mean, yeah, everyone's very gung-ho to pay you more because in that environment, because they're like you said, they're like, that means I have more clients. Like something is going well when that conversation takes place.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. I dream about the day that I start with a client who pays me $500 a month, and I help them build a business that's so successful that they pay me $10,000 a month, and they go, worth every penny. I mean, how incredible would that be?
The gratification on both sides is up there. So, Thom, what motivates you to do this work? What's your motivation here?
My purpose and calling in life is not attached to a vocation. My wife and I have been foster parents since 2011, and we've welcomed 30 foster kids into our home in that amount of time. And many of them have been reunited with their families and gone home. But 4 of them who came as emergencies have stayed with us. So we have 2 permanent foster kids right now who we would like to adopt one day. We have 3 adopted children, and we have 2 biological children. And 5 of those kids, 5 of the 7 still live at home. And they come from really challenging places. So on sort of a relational family level, the ability to work from home is incredibly valuable. Like, this morning, one of the little ones is sick. So I just told my wife, I said, look, I can help you out in the morning. That's no problem, because I'll just work this evening when she's asleep again. Like, it's just no problem. That part of being an entrepreneur, being your own boss, I'm literally 10 seconds from my bedroom in the morning. Like, it's just, I actually really do love it. And it was very good during the pandemic. Like, there was just lots. So sort of there's that one side of things, but my calling in life is to raise kids from hard places. And when you look at all the things that are set against them for generations already, dysfunction, learned behavior, genetics, epigenetics, all of these things, trauma, I go, how am I going to give them the best chance to live up to their God-given potential? So one of the things, and this is extremely practical, my wife and I both agree that the times our best family memories have been on family vacation. So we have always made it a priority to go on family vacations. So this year, now we had to stop for a few years because of the pandemic, and we have one of our children is vulnerable, so we have to be very careful with just all sickness, not even COVID. But this year we can travel. We went for a month to Florida.
Every time I messaged you, I was like, hey, what's going on? We should catch up soon. You're like, still in Florida.
Yeah.
Dude, what are you working, dude?
It was awesome. So that motivates me. And it's not just about the money of being able to do that, but I worked like of those 4 weeks, 2 of them, I work half time, right? Out of the rental home that we had down there. And I want to eventually have a property, a vacation property that we can rent out as a business, but also use 6-7 weeks of the year. When you're a parent, the goal is this. You're about to become a parent again. So this is important.
Minutes away.
Every single kid is going to go through incredible trauma in their life. They're going to hit crisis. They're going to hit relational crises of faith, all these things. A big time that happens is when you're a young adult in your 20s. At that moment, when my kid has left the house and they're hitting trauma and they're having trouble, you know what I want them to do? I want them to have warm memories of home so that even if they haven't been here for a long time, their first impulse when trouble hits is to come back to where they were nurtured. The only way they're ever going to feel safe coming back here is if we've invested in the kind of memories that are going to draw them back after a long period of time. That absolutely motivates me. Now, on a business side, do I love helping entrepreneurs become successful? Absolutely, I do. Do I love the interaction and getting to know people? I have 4 clients right now in Europe. Incredible. It's just incredible. So do I love that aspect? Does it motivate me? Absolutely. I want to become a world-class coach. That's my motivation because I know that I'm going to be able to help people. But if you dial all the way back, it's my family, my faith. Those are the things that are the most important. And the way I'm doing business right now allows me to pour into the values that are the most important to me personally.
That hits, man. That hits. I know your family's older than mine. Like your kids are older. My son's 2. And my wife is like minutes away from going into labor with our second. And it feels like that. She's like 38 weeks pregnant. Those are the things that I strive to like build and instill in my own family and to my kids and the things that I think about. So I agree with you. I don't really have much more than that. Is that I agree with this idea that there's going to be some turbulence in their life. And if you make your home life and all the things that surround it a place where they look back on fondly, you did something right.
Right. And we can do that without being extremely wealthy.
Totally.
Right?
The money's nice though.
But the money's nice. And we're business people. We have to make money or we don't have a business. And that is the position we're in. That's why my identity not attached to a particular career.
Are you a first-gen entrepreneur in your family?
No, I'm not. My dad started always in the agriculture business, right? But he was part of, a group of men that started what became a huge feed mill and for farms. And then he started his own farm. My grandparents immigrated here from the Ukraine after the revolution in Russia. They were persecuted there, but they had massive farms out there.
The reason I ask is like, I think part of this, and I'm separated. Like my grandfather was an entrepreneur, my parents, not so much. But being exposed to entrepreneurship is such a great thing, I think, for like your own children, because sometimes before I started this, you always think kind of like, why not me? And you're like, I should do that. I want to start my own thing. I want to do something. And it feels so out of reach if you're not really exposed to it. And I know you would share the story about your dad turned 40, I forgot. And it feels like 10 hours ago that you shared this story. We've been talking. So it's like being exposed to those things kind of rewires your brain to understand what's possible. And it's like, I want for the kids to see it and look at you and go like, that's the man. Like he did that. Like we can become entrepreneurs too. Entrepreneurship is awesome. And to want them to see that it is a viable option for them, not something that's out of reach, not just like go get a job is kind of the only way to do it. It's like, sure, if you want to get a job, go for it. I had someone on a few months ago and he was like, my family are only entrepreneurs. And they thought I was insane when I went and got a job. They're like, are you sure you want to go get a job? But I think giving them those options is like mission critical, because it took a lot for me to overcome this limiting belief that it was a path that I could take for myself. And I don't want my kids to have that limiting belief. If they want to get a job and work for somebody else, go for it. I don't care. But I want them to know that they can do it and it's not out of reach for them.
Correct.
All right, well, let's end here, man. What would you like to build, right? Looking forward, what would you like to build that you haven't built yet?
Well, there are different ways you can scale. I'm a solopreneur right now. There's different ways you can scale. You can raise your prices, but you can also add team members. If you add team members, are they employees? Are they contractors? Do you franchise what you're doing? Do you license it to other people? And if you had asked me even 6 months ago, I would have said, nah, I'm just going to ride this solopreneur thing to the end. I won't have a saleable business, but that's okay. And I'm not sure. There's something about having a team and saying, we serve this audience in this way and we all do it together. That might be in the future, but I have certain revenue markers before which I won't even fully entertain something like that. I know I can get to this point as a solopreneur and, maybe to make it the rest of the way to my ultimate goal, I would think about it. But to be it, honestly, I want to be a world-class coach for entrepreneurs. And I've got a lot of learning before I can actually claim that. But that's really where I want to go. I want to help a lot of people change their lives by creating wealth through business.
Amen, brother. I feel like I got to introduce you to my friend Chris Marr. He is the authoritative coach. He's a good dude. He was on the show a few weeks ago. He's a good dude, but his mission is to help people become those types of world-class coaches in that way. And he's become a good friend. I used to work with him back in the day, but he's a good friend and he does a lot of really great work. He's got a good book out. He didn't pay me to plug this either. He's just,
wow.
I'm
just a good guy.
I'm a fan and a friend of his work, and it's impacted me. So I think it might resonate with you as well. But Thom, I appreciate you, brother. It's good to see you. It's good to catch up and hear what you got going on and all this. This is we've known each other for so long, and I didn't know half of this stuff.
Well, I appreciate it, Nick.
Yeah, man. I know more people feel seen because you shared your story, and I think that's the most important thing. So
appreciate that.
All right, man.
Great opportunity. I enjoy visiting with you. Now we just recorded our conversation.
Yeah, seriously, this isn't too far off from our normal chats. It's just now we did it, and I'm going to publish it for other people to hear us talk.
Right, exactly. Awesome. No, I appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun. And it's, you're doing great work too, and you're becoming a new dad again soon. So blessings on that. All of that.
The blood pressure is high. Thanks, man.
No problem.
Hey, Nick again, and thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can sign up for the 1000 Routes newsletter, where I process the insights and stories you hear on this show into frameworks and lessons to help you build a new and different future for your own business. You can sign up at 1000routes.com or check the link in the show notes. All right. The hardest hitting question you'll hear this in the hour. What would be your last meal on earth?
Probably a reverse sear steak with potatoes.
What kind of steak? What cut?
Probably a sirloin, top sirloin. No, maybe a New York strip. Let's go New York strip.
You don't seem so sure.
I don't really care about cuts. I can make any meat taste good on my barbecue.
Okay. I like that you went reverse sear. I appreciate that. Not too many people are reverse searing steaks these days, so I like that. I'm a ribeye fan. I feel like the ribeye is just like the cut.
It's not bad. I will tell you this. Last holiday, I smoked some ribs. I've never, ever done ribs that good in my life.